The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman.
What is up? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you are watching, however you are following, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for free, on the iHeartRadio app, or you're putting a face to the voice and you are watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Road to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, closing the gap in on there. Thank you for continuously making the Ben Garcia Show one of your first listens, if not your only listen, with all of your sports content. It is NFL free agency. We're going to talk some Justin Fields. We're going to talk all things going on, everything NFL free agency. Saquon Barkley over to the Eagles. Don't love that for the Philadelphia Eagles. But before we get to all the narratives surrounding everything around the NFL, let's start right here with the Atlanta Falcons signing Kirk Cousins. So unless you've been living under a rock or sports is just not entirely your life and you have a real 9-to-5 job and are unaware of the surroundings around you in the sports world, Kirk Cousins has agreed to a contract with the Falcons. Will pay him roughly $45 million a year. Some people are critical of it. Some people are praising it. And here's my take on the situation. The Atlanta Falcons have been in complete quarterback turmoil for years now. They have been looking for an answer ever since Matt Ryan walked out that door. The Atlanta Falcons are not the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Atlanta Falcons are not the New England Patriots. They're not the Dallas Cowboys. They're not the San Francisco 49ers. The stakes there are just not that high. And so, yeah, Kirk Cousins getting crazy money that I get upset with Dak Prescott for taking is just not the same stakes. Dak Prescott is playing in a division in which there's Brian Daboll, who's a really good head coach, who just got Brian Burns, who's got Kayvon Thibodeau there, Jalen Hurts, who's been to a Super Bowl, Saquon Barkley is now there. It's a much more competitive division with the Commanders making a coaching change and having $1 billion to spend in free agency. The number 2 overall pick, who knows how good Drake May will be, or who knows, maybe someone falls to them. That's something we'll talk about later in the show. But Kirk Cousins going to the Atlanta Falcons is a slam dunk. They're not paying anyone on their team right now outside of Jesse Bates, the safety, a very underrated safety, but safeties don't make that much in the league. Kirk Cousins is going to bring stability to a franchise for years to come. And I know there's some people that are sick of the Kirk Cousins shtick. He's a nice guy. It looks like he goes to Kohl's for all of his, shopping wear needs. He seems like a family man. Some people are not really into the fact that he's as nerdy as he is. But this is what's going to work for Atlanta. Atlanta is bringing stability to a position that has not had stability in years. And now you add the fact that Kirk Cousins is going to have a really good offensive line, an offensive line that he's never had before. Bijan Robinson, who should actually get touches this year with the new head coach in Raheem Morris, who's going to bring that Sean McVay offense to the Atlanta Falcons. Drake London is there. And Kyle Pitts, who I still believe is an elite talent, will get touches from Kirk Cousins. And then you have a defense that will be at the head of Raheem Morris that I think is the best team in the division right now. Derek Carr and the Saints are not cutting it. Call me a skeptic, but I'm going to take Kirk Cousins and the weapons of the Atlanta Falcons with the new leadership of the Atlanta Falcons over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. I just am. I love the stability Kirk Cousins brings, and although he's a guy with one playoff win, this is the going rate for quarterbacks now. You got to pay $45 million. And Kirk Cousins, given his history, his statistics, is a very, very productive quarterback. Yeah, you could say he's had Justin Jefferson, he's had Jordan Addison, he's had TJ Hawkinson over the years, but he's never had a very good defense. He was keeping the Commanders, the Redskins at the time, afloat. The Atlanta Falcons went out and got the quarterback that they needed to help stabilize their franchise. And that brings me over to my next point, something we'll talk about later with Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears. People ask themselves, or ask the obvious question, if it's so obvious, why did the Atlanta Falcons choose Kirk Cousins, who's costing them $45 million a year, than just give up a second-round pick for Justin Fields? Look around the league. No one wants Justin Fields. No one. No one has made an egregious effort to go get Justin Fields on their team, as I'm constantly refreshing Twitter to make sure I don't miss anything. But no one is consistently going after Justin Fields right now. And if you're the Atlanta Falcons and you're Raheem Morris, he said it himself, he wouldn't be there in that position if the Atlanta Falcons had stable quarterback play. So now you bring a quarterback to the likes of a Sean McVay offense. They brought over an offensive guy in Sean McVay's coaching tree to help out Raheem Morris with the offensive side of the ball. You get an accurate quarterback, and you don't get any of the grief or the baggage that Justin Fields brings. Justin Fields has only proved that he's been a bad quarterback in the NFL. So you can get him or the stability of Kirk Cousins. The Atlanta Falcons are not trying to win Super Bowls every year. This is not the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's just different stakes. The Atlanta Falcons stabilizing their team, and that's exactly what it is, stabilizing their team with a franchise quarterback in Kirk Cousins, in which they could still go draft a quarterback this year. They've got a high pick. Sit him behind Kirk Cousins and let him bake there for a couple years. Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers style. That works. We've seen it work. All the Atlanta Falcons have done is give themselves options. And they chose Kirk Cousins and the stability of him over everything else, including Justin Fields, a quarterback in which no one is going after right now. There's not a single team right now trying to consistently and pursue Justin Fields. The Atlanta Falcons' options now are limitless. They can still go draft a quarterback, or they can add another first-round piece to their defense. Wait until next year. Draft a quarterback then. Kirk Cousins has still got a few good years left in him. And everyone will say he tore his Achilles. He was never a quarterback who was mobile. It's not going to affect him that much. It's a slam dunk for the Atlanta Falcons getting Kirk Cousins. Now for my weekly Cardinals talk on the show. Since I am from Arizona, I work on a show on Fox Sports 910 AM in Phoenix. I wouldn't be a true Cardinals fan or a true person that covers the Cardinals if I didn't talk about exactly what the Cardinals have done on day one of free agency. They did not go crazy. They did not overspend. They had tons of money, and there were people clamoring for Christian Wilkins. There were people clamoring for Chris Jones, and those guys are gone. It is appropriate to get excited with what the Arizona Cardinals have done on the first day of free agency, and they'll probably do more. I'm only going to spend a few minutes on this, but it's important to be able to give praise where it is due. Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury and the previous regime continued to try to win the offseason with big, flashy moves and storylines to get you talking and to completely distract you from the fact that this team was a dumpster fire before. It just was. It was a dumpster fire. It didn't matter who they were getting, whether it was Hollywood Brown, who turned into Tyler Lindenbaum for the Baltimore Ravens, who's now going to be a franchise center for that organization. Meanwhile, while Marquise Hollywood Brown can't stay on the field. It's a big deal. So when I see Monty Ossenfort ignore the noise and not spend $110 million on Christian Wilkins, who's 28 years old, who had 9 sacks this year, It reminds me way too much of Jordan Phillips. I'm sure Christian Wilkins will be a much better piece than Jordan Phillips ever was to the Arizona Cardinals. But that's just not what they need right now. The Cardinals don't need a big contract that with the potential could bust. The Arizona Cardinals were a bad football team last year. A bad football team that was improving week by week. And what did JG and Monty Ossenfort decide? At this point when I'm recording, not a single offensive piece has been added because the offense isn't really an issue for the Arizona Cardinals right now. Kyler Murray's a franchise quarterback, a top 8 quarterback in the NFL when healthy. I will continue to contest that. Trey McBride has broken out as a bona fide star at tight end. Michael Wilson has shown that he is capable of being a number 2 wide receiver. I've met the guy, incredibly smart, incredibly big acumen, and now they'll be able to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. to solidify their wide receiver 1 with James Conner in the back end. The offense was not the problem. They identified the issue and instead of throwing loads of money at it, picked out smart, capable veterans to help raise this team's ability to win games next year. Whether it's Bilal Nichols, the defensive tackle from the Raiders, who has been nothing but steady Eddie and had a bunch of starts under his belt, bringing a much-needed help to the defensive line that was just getting gashed by Christian McCaffrey and others. Mac Wilson, the linebacker from the Patriots. I have it here. Mac Wilson was the 4th highest graded linebacker in coverage of all linebackers who played at least 100 coverage snaps last season, and the 10th highest graded linebacker overall who played at least 200 total snaps and had 5 sacks. The Cardinals now have Kaiser White in the middle, who is a really good linebacker last year, sneaky, and then got hurt, and then added Mac Wilson as well to the linebacker core that desperately needed help. And then instead of going just crazy and spending loads of money on Xavier Howard, something the Cardinals did not need right now, it did not fit the timeline, Monty Ossenfort identified Sean Murphy Bunting and brought him in to the Arizona Cardinals. This is exactly what the Cardinals are doing. Cardinals fans should be ecstatic. Just because they're not signing the sexy big name in Chris Jones or Christian Wilkins that will feel good like junk food for half a day, and then you realize later on in the other half of the day, i.e. the second half of the season, what were we doing when we needed defensive back help? Monty Ossenfort has hit it out of the park. He has identified the issues. He's allowed the Cardinals to fill holes that needed to be filled instead of just throwing bags of cash at one position while everything else needs to be filled without draining the Cardinals' salary cap space that can still roll over to next season. Cardinals fans need to understand that this is not a Steve Keim regime anymore. It's not about winning headlines. It's about winning in the trenches, and he has only showed this since he came into the Arizona Cardinals every single year, month, day that Monty Ossenfort has been the general manager. Now, here's what I will say. It would be interesting if the Cardinals did go after one target. And the one target I'm thinking of, and I understand I just talked about the offense not needing a ton of help. I have a vision for a big offense in the Arizona Cardinals. T. Higgins has requested a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals. He is a 6'4" wide receiver. I'm all for big, lengthy wide receivers who are also just menaces in the red zone. If you can add Marvin Harrison Jr., give up, a second-round pick, Trey McBride, who's a 6'2", 6'3" tight end, Michael Wilson, who's a 6'4" wide receiver, a big running back in James Conner, a 6'4" wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., and then add another 6'4" wide receiver in T. Higgins, that is what I feel the identity of this Arizona Cardinals team can be. You can throw a decent amount of money at T. Higgins, but it doesn't matter because you're not paying anyone else on the offensive side of the ball. By the time that T. Higgins contract is up, you can then spread that money around to Trey McBride, to Marvin Harrison Jr. to Michael Wilson. T. Higgins would not be taking away from this Cardinals offense. I'm not saying it's what the Cardinals need to do, bar none, but it's an interesting thought for if the Arizona Cardinals wanted to go big, to really take away from the fact that they do have a tiny quarterback and a tiny wide receiver in Marquise Brown, in Rondale Moore, in Kyler Murray. You can have just a menacing, demoralizing offense in a big, bruising running back in James Conner, a big wide receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr., a big wide receiver in Michael Wilson, and an even bigger wide receiver in T. Higgins. Those are 3 6'4" guys. That is just demoralizing for a cornerback to have to try to defend defensive backs, normally smaller players on the field. If I had one wish list, my wish list would be for the Arizona Cardinals to go after T. Higgins. But thus far, Monty Ossenfort has knocked it out of the park. This is exactly what they need to do. Don't swing for home runs. Just get on base, hit a couple of doubles, and the runs will slowly come in. This is how the Cardinals compete this year. Let's officially talk about how the Chicago Bears have completely ruined Justin Fields' trade value by waiting and waiting and waiting, and now are likely to end up with peanuts for the former first-round pick out of Ohio State. The Chicago Bears and Bears fans, I have a video on it. I basically said, in a nutshell, there's no way Justin Fields is going for a first-round pick. I'd be surprised if he went for a second-round pick. Some Bears fans were arguing that he would go for a better pick than he was originally drafted for. And I rattled off stat after stat after stat, showed that Justin Fields was not a good quarterback in the NFL. He's a pretty good rushing quarterback in the NFL. That's not a slight at Justin Fields. It's one of his weapons. He has really good feet. He's got really good legs. He's able to escape better than other quarterbacks. But his arm has been suspect, to say the least. Justin Fields has only proven he has not been a good quarterback in the NFL. At all, bar none. But Bears fans have continuously tried to argue the fact that he's been an elite quarterback, that he's been a good quarterback, that anything, they would rather him over Caleb Williams. Well, how the turntables. Justin Fields has not been a good quarterback in the NFL. And it's not just me who feels this way. It's the rest of the NFL. The Raiders could have had Justin Fields for a second-round pick. If they really felt the same way Bears fans did about Justin Fields, they'd give up a second-round pick for a franchise quarterback like that. And they didn't do it. You know who they went out and got? Gardner Minshew, who has showed he's been a very good bridge quarterback and a very good backup quarterback and has better stats than Trevor Lawrence in some instances. They went and got him. The Atlanta Falcons said, no thanks. We're good on the Justin Fields experience. The guy that almost got a head coach fired, we're good. Got an OC fired, we're good. Luke Getsy of the Raiders could have had a reunion with Justin Fields, said, I think I'd rather Gardner Minshew on my team. The Falcons said, we're going to go get Kirk Cousins. The Patriots, to this point, need a quarterback. Would rather gamble in the draft on Jaden Daniels, who I watched for 2 years at ASU, isn't anything special to me. And then he went over to LSU and tore it up, but that's neither here nor there. The Chicago Bears will be lucky to get a day 2 pick for Justin Fields at this point, and not a second-round pick, a third-round pick, possibly even a day 3 pick. This reminds me exactly when the Arizona Cardinals had Josh Rosen on their roster, but still selected Kyler Murray. Myself included, thought the Cardinals could get more for Josh Rosen. He'd only played 1 year. He was a very raw rookie. No one at the time thought he was just completely abysmal. He had only played 1 year. He hadn't even played a full year worth of games. Sam Bradford started that season for the Arizona Cardinals. But they waited, and they waited, and they waited, and they got a late second-round pick for the former 10th overall pick just a year later. His value wasn't even that low at that time. And they got a second-round pick out of it, and it was a late second-round pick, and they were lucky to have gotten that and stole that from the Miami Dolphins. Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, unless barring something unforeseen, and let's just knock on that right now. If the Chicago Bears are still mulling over whether they should keep Justin Fields and not take Caleb Williams in this year's draft, they are just buffoons, and they deserve to be a garbage organization, a badly organized, a bad organization, poorly mismanaged organization for the next decade. Because that's how you get coaches fired, by keeping Justin Fields over Caleb Williams. And any Bears fan that thinks that Justin Fields is a better option over Caleb Williams, I'm sorry, you do not know football. It's just not going to work. It's been 3 years, and he hasn't shown he's been a capable quarterback in any statistic outside of running the football. They can't win games, and then Bears fans will continue to say, well, he needs more weapons. They've given him Cole Kmet. They've given him DJ Moore. Once you start to get into the, well, he just needs more, then you turn into the Brock Purdy argument where everyone just argues it's the weapons and not actually the quarterback. Justin Fields can't play, guys. He just can't play. And I argued for months, weeks, it feels like years at this point. You will not get a first-round pick for Justin Fields. You're not going to get a second-round pick for Justin Fields. You'll be lucky at this point to get a third-round pick for Justin Fields. You waited too long, and you showed your hand. The Bears are going to take a quarterback in this draft, and instead of pawning off Justin Fields when they had a chance weeks ago, even at the NFL Combine when it was a hot topic of conversation, they didn't do it. They held on to him. And the Bears consistently show why they are a poorly run organization. This guy should have been shipped off weeks ago. But now you're going to get pennies on the dollar for this guy because Justin Fields is not a backup. He's way too popular to be that guy. And the Bears have mismanaged this whole thing for weeks now. They should have said, yep, we're taking Caleb Williams. Who wants Justin Fields? And sold him off at that point. They didn't. And now they might have to walk into training camp with 2 quarterbacks, which is not good for anyone, especially a rookie quarterback trying to gain his confidence. Crazy, poorly mismanaged franchise with fans that continue to try to talk themselves into having a franchise quarterback because their best quarterback has been Jay Cutler, so their bar is incredibly low. The Bears got to figure this out, and they got to get rid of Justin Fields in an instant because if they don't, the value for him is just going to continue to come down. You're not getting a first-round pick for Justin Fields. You're not getting a second-round pick for Justin Fields. You're going to get pennies on the dollar, and you're going to take your medicine because that's all there is for that quarterback. The Eagles have basically won day one of free agency because they signed the sexiest name, whose name isn't Kirk Cousins, and there's a lot of people heaping praise for the Saquon Barkley signing to the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll get into all of it in just a second. The details of his deal is 3 years, $37 million. That could be worth up to $46 million and includes $26 million fully guaranteed at signing. Barkley beats the franchise tag this year. Last year played on it. Had a so-so year last year with the Giants, and the Philadelphia Eagles decided, although the market for running back seems to be down, what we need to do is go get Saquon Barkley. And I hate this move for the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely hate it. In which a team that had holes everywhere in their secondary is probably going to lose Hassan Reddick, might even lose their other pass rusher in Josh Sweat. They decide to pour loads of money into the running back market. Guys, I know Saquon Barkley is a fun name, but he's more name than he has been production over the last couple of years. Over the past few seasons, over the last 4 seasons, Saquon Barkley has had 1 year in which he rushed over 1,000 yards. Saquon Barkley has had 2 in the last 5 years in which in 2019 when he registered 1,000 yards, he barely did it by 3 yards. Saquon Barkley's best year in the pros was his rookie season when he had 1,300 yards rushing, 5 yards a carry, 720 yards receiving, I guess I should say, with 91 receptions. His best year wasn't even last season with Brian Dable and Daniel Jones and company. It just wasn't. His best year was his rookie year, and we still talk about Saquon Barkley like he's in the Christian McCaffrey echelon of running backs, and he's just simply not there. I don't understand. This is pardon my Steve Keim references, but this is just a Steve Keim Arizona Cardinals win the offseason news headlines. This is going to sound great in Philadelphia sports talk radio for the next couple of days because they can phrase it as Jalen Hurts got some help in the backfield. They'll be able to have a stronger running game. They have holes now at center. They have holes now at D tackle with Fletcher Cox gone. Josh Sweat is on the trade block. Hassan Reddick is on the trade block. Those are both numerously reported. James Bradbury can't cover anything. Kevin Byard is gone. They have multiple needs in the secondary, but instead they are spending their hard-earned money on a running back, a position that you have been obviously proven to be able to find anywhere. They could have got DeAndre Swift for $8 million a year with an opt-out after 2 years, who they had last year and had over 1,000 rushing yards. I'm not a huge fan of DeAndre Swift, but at the contract, I'd rather that. Or the Josh Jacobs 2+2 contract, in which they can opt out of that contract in 2 years if they're the Green Bay Packers for less money than what Saquon Barkley got. And he's younger than Saquon Barkley. Barkley is notoriously injured. He's had an ACL tear. He's on the post side of that. He's ripped up his ankle numerous times as the Giants running back. He's more flash than he is production in the NFL. There's no way I would give Saquon Barkley this massive deal. I understand that it's going to alleviate some pressure from Jalen Hurts. But when you have weaknesses in the secondary in which James Bradbury can't cover anyone, Kevin Byard is now gone. You wasted draft picks on that, so you have to get a safety there. They never really did replace the hole of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the secondary. Josh Sweat could be gone. Hassan Reddick could be gone. Jason Kelsey's already gone. Fletcher Cox is gone, and you're allocating resources to the running back position? That, call me crazy, doesn't make any sense. I don't know what's going on in Philly. I don't know if Nick Sirianni is panicking and is loading up the offense because he's not sure if he has a top-flight quarterback that he thought he had earlier in the season or last year after the Super Bowl. But this is just clearly trying to win a headline in Philadelphia in which a season that tumbled downhill after like week 9 after they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Because it has just been bad. And this contract is going to look bad in a couple years. This is a 3-year contract. Saquon Barkley is 27 years old. This contract is going to take him up till he's 30 years old. He's on the opposite side of a torn ACL, and his best season was his rookie year in which he had 2,000 all-purpose yards. He didn't even sniff that 2 seasons ago when it was at 1,600 yards. And he's had 1,000-yard season in the last 4 years rushing the football. And if you go back 5 years when he had a 1,000 rushing yard season, it was only 1,003 yards. It wasn't anything crazy. Saquon Barkley was awesome at Penn State. He's a home run hitter, but he's more flash than production. He's not Christian McCaffrey. He's never been a top 4 running back in the NFL. He just hasn't been statistically. He's not one of those guys. So when I see a team in the Philadelphia Eagles allocating resources to a running back position where they have numerous other needs, I think it's a boneheaded mistake, and I don't know what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing. It doesn't make sense, especially when you can draft 85% of Saquon Barkley in the 3rd round. It's what all the smart teams are doing. If you really wanted to help Jalen Hurts out with that, you should have allocated the money somewhere else and used the draft to get a running back, because this ain't it. That is all I got for you guys this week on the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're watching, however you're following, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for free, on the iHeartRadio app. You can find us there at Ben Garcia Show, or you are watching on YouTube. You are putting a face to the voice. We took a couple of weeks out, but we are back now, back and better than ever. NFL free agency, we will continue this week to stay up to date, give you the hottest news and opinions on all things NFL. Probably throw some basketball in there too with the NBA playoffs coming up. Thank you so much for making the Ben Garcia Show your first listen or possibly your only listen. Don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube. Leave a review. Leave a comment. Tell me why you love me. Tell me why you hate me. I really do listen to both. I think that it's great when someone hates me. I think it's hilarious. So please type that down in the comment section as well. And until next week, until next episode, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.